Hello, hello, my name is Dove, and this is Timmy. If you are new here, then welcome, and if you are returning, then welcome back, and also I love you. Timmy is high out of his mind at the moment because he got some teeth out on Friday. It is currently Sunday, so I think I mentioned it in my video on Superman, but all of the money that I made from that was going to be going towards his dental surgery, so thank you if you watch that for helping me bankroll my cat's healthcare. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about Only Murders in the Building. Something you guys may or may not know about me is that I love a good whodunit, which is why I was so excited to see that season 5 of Only Murders in the Building would be premiering on my birthday this year, back in September. In preparation for the new seasons, I actually binged all 4 of the previous ones again, and I am happy to say that, at least in my humble opinion, it is one of those shows that just gets better every season. Like, I feel like every season has been an improvement upon the last. I'm not sure about season 5 over season 4 yet. I will say that as of writing and recording this, it has not finished premiering. I think there are still either 2 or 3 more episodes. So there will be minor spoilers, but nothing major. Killers may or may not be mentioned, but they won't be revealed. That said, the murder victims will be directly discussed. So if you're a person who doesn't want to know which person each season is going to focus on, because it's always revealed in the last episode of the season before, then beware, because I will be talking about all of them. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up watching a lot of like daytime TV mysteries, so primarily Monk. I love Mr. Monk. I do feel like it's important to make the distinction here, though, because I love a mystery. I don't like scary. I don't like gory. I am a huge baby when it comes to things that are scary and things that are gory. So murder, fine. Murder is fine as long as it's cozy and preferably also funny, of which this show is both. But the main reason that I want to discuss the show with you today is because of the unique relationship that the story has with place, so much so that it's literally right there in the title. And just a quick reminder that in the context of cultural geography, the concept of place with a capital P is distinct from the concept of space. Space is the location of something, it's where, it's not much else. Place is the collective identity of a space, not just where it is, but also the people who live there, the socio-economic backdrop, the political landscape, the cultural practices, all of the ways that people participate in place and the way that they spend their time. It isn't static in the way that space is. It's like the living, breathing, complex, and ever-changing nature of what it is to exist somewhere. And also how that existence is distinct from existence anywhere else. This concept is infinitely scalable, both up and down. So a place can be as big as a country, or it can be as small as your bedroom. Only Murders manages to engage the audience not just with like complex and compelling mysteries to solve each season. It is also downright hilarious. Lately, I've been pitching it to people as like the Three Amigos reunion, except better because Chevy Chase has been replaced by Selena Gomez. Guys, I hate that Chevy Chase is funny. I hate it because he is funny, unfortunately. He does make me laugh, unfortunately. He's also a fucking twat. He sucks. That guy sucks. Pierce from Community barely had to act for that. I think he just showed up and said what he was going to say anyways. So for those unfamiliar, the premise of the show is as follows. People are forced to evacuate their building on the Upper West Side when a fire alarm is triggered. The residents aren't allowed back into the building for hours, so our 3 main characters happen to meet in a nearby restaurant while they wait. They're brought together after overhearing a discussion about the true crime podcast All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma, which all three of them are obsessed with. Later that evening, they find out that the reason it takes so long to be let back into the building is because while there was no fire, a murder has taken place right under their noses. After having just bonded over their shared interest in murder mysteries, the three take it upon themselves to investigate the scene and make their own podcast about it.
Did you see the 9th floor?
Yeah.
I could get us to the freight elevator just to take a peek. Just to see what's happening.
Okay, but we should take it to 8.
Why?
They'll have cops posted on 9.
Ooh, you're good.
The actual name Only Murders in the Building comes from Steve Martin. I don't remember which episode it is, but basically, like, something else is going on, and they're like, maybe we should look into that too. And Steve Martin is like, no, we gotta keep our focus here. Only murderers in the building.
We could multitask a little bit. Silo out a second investigation, do a second podcast.
No. We need to focus. Only murders in the building.
Particularly now in the solid 4 seasons that have followed that initial season, this is a premise that the show pokes fun at quite a bit because it is an inherently flawed business model. You can't just be banking on new murder content to emerge within your own building every time you want to make a new season of your podcast. Except that clearly it isn't a flawed business model, which is honestly probably more worrisome than the branding choices. Someone just needs all the attention right now. They said that when he was waking up, he just wanted to cuddle with everybody. And that's my boy. That's you. That's who Timmy is. He's just such a lovey boy. There is a really funny cutscene from season 5. So, season 5, the doorman of the building, Lester, is the victim. And it shows after the first murder, the guilt. He was having this conversation with his wife. I'll just put it in here, I think.
A murder. The killer must have walked right past my desk.
No, it's not your fault. 1 murder in 30 years? 4? Oh, honey, I'm not gonna lie to you. 4's a lot of murders.
The thing that makes Only Murders in the Building shine is that while the plot centers around far less savory topics, found family is in fact the beating heart of the show. And you guys know that I'm a sucker for a found family. Arguably, that is my favorite trope in existence. I'm gonna choose found family every single time. While the seasons are interconnected, like there are some plot lines that follow through everything, each one does kind of stand on its own when it comes to like vibes and the feeling that centers around the victim and the people who are mourning them. So another one of the whodunits that I simply love is Knives Out. Guys, I freaking love Knives Out. I actually saw it at an early screening in 2019. It was a packed theater. Literally, I got the last 2 seats for me and my friend. We were sitting in the handicap seats, like where somebody with a wheelchair would have been. They were the only 2 seats left. One of the single best theater going experiences I've ever have, and I'm saying that as a person who went to a midnight premiere of Breaking Dawn Part 2. So, you know I'm being serious. But something that Knives Out and Only Murders in the Building really have in common is that the focus is honestly primarily on those grieving the loss, the living victim of the situation. It uses loss as a lens to magnify and bring the inner turmoil that they face into the external plane so that we as an audience can better examine it. The specific thing that inspired me to begin writing this video was actually the interview that Michael Cyril Creighton, who plays Howard on the show, did with Jane Lynch on the official Only Murders in the Building podcast, which is new this season. First of all, I'm loving this theme of having official podcasts to accompany shows all of a sudden. I thought it was a genius marketing move for this show specifically because the whole premise of the show revolves around a true crime podcast that our trio produces together, right? So having a podcast to go with the podcast show, fun, makes sense. But now there's an official Dancing with the Stars podcast too. That said, second of all, having Howard be the host, perfect. And third of all, I think Jane Lynch is perhaps one of the single most interesting people in the world. So Jane Lynch, her character Saz, is in fact the murder victim for season 4. In my opinion, I think that season has hit the hardest in terms of, like, not only is this somebody that our characters might have cared about, but it's somebody that we as an audience knew and loved as well, because Saz is pretty well featured within the story throughout the other seasons, and she is Charles's oldest friend and confidant. She was his stunt double on his show Brazos, which we're going to talk about later. So in this interview, Michael Cyril Creighton, I keep wanting to call him Howard, but we should use his real name because he's a real person. He posed a very interesting question to Jane Lynch, which was to describe where Saz is now, as in what does her afterlife look like within the context of the show. And I love, number one, I love that the question was asked. Number two, I love how seriously Jane Lynch took the question, because she really sat there and she's like, let me think about this. And number three, love her answer. Love her answer, because Jane Lynch described Saz's afterlife to be grounded and of the earthly world. Her presence and the infinite love that she has for Charles lives on and surrounds him in a very visceral way that the description of a Christian heaven has never resonated with me. I've said this before, but the idea of a final rest gives me the peace and comfort that the concept of everlasting life never has. That sounds terrifying. Final rest, I can do.
I think she was a really pure soul. When she transitioned, she went to a plane that is still very much connected to the earth and very much connected to one Charles Hayden Savage.
20 years I spent mirroring you, getting down your mannerisms, your gait, your speech patterns. But one thing I could never get about you is how someone as wonderful as you could think so little of himself.
I think her love for him is ancient, and his for her, and he doesn't even realize how deep it is.
Yeah.
I think it's an ancient connection. It is her job now to watch over him and let him make his mistakes and everything. But he will always know, because he's a very solitary guy. He doesn't connect very easily with people, but he does know now that there's one person in this universe that loves him unconditionally.
The ways in which we live beyond our bodily deaths, to me, isn't on some higher plane beyond the skies, but in the ways that we made our impact on the people and places still here among the dirt. From dust to dust, here on Earth, where we came from, and where we will one day go. But what I didn't expect when I was outlining and beginning to write the script was the losses that I would face in my own personal life and the things that it would bring from within to my own external viewpoint, and how that experience would pivot the narrative arc that this video took. Because seriously, I was about halfway through writing this and then my life started to fall apart. So this video, I guess, will be more personal, perhaps, than some of the other stuff I've done in the past. But if you're not interested in that, go watch something else. I don't really care. It's my channel. I'll do what I want. So if the found family among our trio is the blood and the beating heart of the show, and the residents that they share space with are the other vital organs that made up the functioning and ever-evolving body of place, the building that they live in is the skin that holds everything together. And I like this, like, body type of metaphor to describe the Arconia in particular. The Arconia is the name of the building that they live in, because I think envisioning place, capital P place, as something so vulnerable as a life that can be lost, it reminds us of the stakes within our own existence. Because our characters face challenges that threaten not just their own physical well-being, although also that they are getting themselves into life or death situations on a regular basis, but also their spiritual and emotional well-being as it ties to space, place, and the community that they share residing there.
Does this mean we get to use our fireplaces again? Yeah, he was the guy with bad asthma, right? Since he's dead, we should be able to use them now.
We can talk fireplaces at our next board meeting.
Wait, Tim was the reason we couldn't use our fireplaces? I hated that guy.
Ruined Christmas.
He once yelled at me. He once yelled at me for smoking outside.
Look, nobody liked him. But can we all just be grateful he's gone? Say something nice and move on.
And each season pulls back the curtain a little bit more, exposing new mysteries and locations and characters to be discovered within the Arconia to give us a better understanding of everything that makes up this body.
Each of Archibald's buildings have little secrets known only to the architect himself.
As we learn more about the residents and the history of the building, alongside the emotional journeys that our characters take, it feels not just like unlocking a new part of a map in a video game, but also as a journey that unlocks new parts of the self. After Saz's murder kicks off season 4, we do get to explore a previously unspecified area of the building known as the West Tower. So from the external shots, the Arconia takes up a whole city block, and within that block there is a courtyard in the center. So they didn't really mention this in previous seasons, but we learn that the other side of the courtyard is actually it's the same building, but it fully has a separate entrance and everything. They also have a very distinct cultural difference between the Westies and the more well-to-do Easties. And if we're sticking with that whole building as a body analogy, I would say the West Tower is the right brain to the East Tower's left brain. The Westies are a scrappy, creative group of outcasts with comparatively unconventional approaches to relationships and shared living spaces. Although nothing too crazy. I do live in Portland. They're not that crazy. The vibe in the West Tower is palpably different, and yet as we learn more about them throughout the season, it becomes clear that even the Westies are a necessary piece of what makes the building a functioning whole. In Only Murders, place is as much a part of the story and critical plot points as the murders and investigations themselves. The Arconia stretches far beyond just being a simple setting, like the backdrop of what's happening, but as a physical manifestation of the generational stories and cycles that continue to influence people's lives and people's murders today. Capital P Place is the culmination of these synchronicities, and the Arconia is an excellent case study to explore not just how people make the place, but also how place makes the people. Just as an example to illustrate the point, our season 2 victim, Bunny, lived every single day of her life in the same apartment within the Arconia. She was the board president of the building, which is a position that she inherited from her mother, and was an integral. I should stop writing that in these scripts because I struggle with saying it every single time. She was an integral part of the culture, for better or worse. So freaking funny in the first 2 seasons. I was actually sad to see her be murdered because she was such a character.
All in favor of evicting all 3 members of Murder, She Wrote. Terrific! I'll start the eviction process today. The rest of you, if you're a murderer, stop murdering!
Her grandfather was actually the architect who designed the building back in the early 20th century.
The story of Bunny Folger begins with the story of the Arconia. Built in 1908 to help establish the Upper West Side by architect and infamous playboy Archibald Carter, the Arconia was his 4th building of this style in as many countries.
While he was definitely an architectural talent, the guy was also a massive creep. Are we surprised? Clap if you're surprised. Right. And he designed the building to house a series of interconnected tunnels that allow someone, himself, to travel between the walls of the apartments to spy on women who are none the wiser. He's got a creepy little peephole, and he's watching these Edwardian queens undress. But the literal structural decisions that this peeping Tom made are the exact thing that enables his own granddaughter's murder more than 100 years later. At its core, the show isn't primarily about murder per se, but rather thematically, it is grief. It's about the way that grief lives inside of us and the ways that we live inside of grief. And we start to explore these themes from the very start of season 1, when it's revealed that the murder victim, Tim Kono, happens to be one of Mabel's childhood friends. Mabel, who is played by Selena Gomez, doesn't technically live in the Arconia for real, and she actually never has. She's there in season 1 to renovate the apartment of her aunt, who she used to come visit and stay with in the summers. She made friends with other children in the building, Tim Kono among them, and inspired by the Hardy Boys books, personally, I was a Nancy Drew girl, but I get it, this was a young boys mystery collection, so the Hardy Boys, yeah. But inspired by the Hardy Boys books, they would create and solve mysteries together. And though she mostly kept those experiences and memories in the past, Tim's death triggers some compulsory self-reflection as she's forced to confront her unresolved trauma. Tim's death isn't just the death of a person that she used to know, but also representative of the death of the person she hoped that she would one day become. Not in a literal sense, because Tim, in actuality, was just like some stressed finance guy at the time of his murder, but in the metaphorical way, the future that she'd imagined for herself as a child was no longer viable. She has to mourn not just the friend that she used to know, but also grieve a person that she didn't know at all. And the guilt of not even knowing him anymore comes with its own layer of sadness as well. Mabel has seemingly spent much of her life in the in-between, at least leading up to the creation of the trio and the podcast.
Oh, we'll get there.
So not only has the sense of belonging and purpose been lost, not just to time, but once again to death, because also there's a whole other thing that happens in season 1 that we learn about happened years before. She has to accept that really things will never be the same again. And yeah, she already knew that on the surface level, of course, but murder certainly has a finality to it. She finds herself once again at the Arconia, listless. All the while, she's like floating around unmoored through her 20s, unsure of where her life is leading. And shit, that could be its own video, couldn't it? Because, like, I'm 27, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anybody my age who knows what they're doing, or where their life is going, or literally anything. So in season 1, Mabel is there renovating her aunt's apartment. I put renovating in quotes here because really all she does in season 1 is paint a portrait of, she paints a mural of some of the building's residents, which is a very cool mural, but that's not exactly renovating. It isn't until season 2 that she starts renovating for real, kind of finishing it by season 3, and then season 4, her aunt decides, no, for real, I'm gonna sell it, you gotta find somewhere else to live. So, in season 4, this uncertainty that Mabel feels around her place in life extends beyond just the emotional listlessness and into the physical and practical. Luckily, by the end of season 4, she does find a place to live and solace among the Westies, not just with her new permanent residence, but also as a community that is united by their own grief. I'm sorry I'm being kind of vague here, but I am hoping that the people who are watching this video either have seen the show and can understand what I'm alluding to, or haven't seen the show and I'm not going to give any major spoilers, but this video hopefully still makes sense. And I don't know how successful that's gonna be. And then there's Oliver, played by the hilarious Martin Short. Oliver is only semi-jokingly the resident narcissist. Now, he certainly is a character who is very self-absorbed, yes, but can you guess what G word I'm gonna say this is really just a reflection of? Say it with me, say it with me. Grief. Yeah, that's right. While Mabel hides her grief behind a sort of like apathy and solitude and stoicness, Oliver leans into bravado and self-grandeur. Every single story he's ever told has a name drop, and every situation he's ever been in has a story to accompany it.
Oh my god. The last time I was in a space that small, I'd had too many Cosmos in Vegas and ended up on stage with Penn and Teller. You know, they were about to saw me in half, and my bladder was so full, so I felt like an idiot. And I didn't know
I really am good with the story right now.
Thank you. Me too.
Despite the depth of his selfishness, it doesn't appear to come from a place where he truly holds himself in such high regard, but rather it's a rejection of his deep-seated insecurity about how he'll never be good enough. He projects an image of someone who has it all, because in truth, he has very little, and he's intimately familiar with the ways the little he has can be ripped away at any moment. The guy has really had his ass handed to him over and over and over and over and over again. Whether or not that was his fault depends on the situation, but honestly, a lot of it was just bad luck and, I guess, unlucky circumstance. Oliver was an orphan, and he was a lonely kind of oddball who, got bounced around from family to family. The family that he finally ended up staying with the longest still kind of sucked. And he never felt at home anywhere. He didn't have a ton of friends until he finally found his place in the theater, literally accidentally stumbling upon the stage and feeling like he belonged for the first time. In adulthood, his big career break was a water-based musical called Splash, and it was gonna make a splash on Broadway.
You can't sell this. Wasn't this your biggest show?
No. This is my biggest flop.
I'm sure it had some good moments.
Well, at the end of the first act, there was this amazing number where 12 mermen dove from a high pier into a pool built into the stage floor. But the first night of previews, they've been having problems with the hydraulics that lowered the floor. And as each merman sang, "Make a Splash," they all dove down from the high pier, one by one. And I can still hear the sound of them all hitting the floor.
Well, you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Nobody died, right?
No.
Yeah, well, okay. We all make mistakes.
It was a big break, for sure. It was a big break to make sure that you are going to be blacklisted from the industry, basically. And then years pass, right? He finally starts gaining a little bit of recognition and success again with his new group of friends and the podcast, and when he was finally able to convince someone else to take a chance on him again in season 3 with the production of his musical Death Rattle, incredible. I have a soft spot in my heart for season 3. His lead actor was murdered, also on opening night. Sucks to be Paul Rudd, man. The guy gets murdered twice. The guy gets murdered kind of 3 times. So the family that Oliver is able to cultivate in his life always seems to end up fractured in some way. His first wife divorces him, and he later in the series finds out that his biological son is not his biological son. Things finally start to turn around again, also in season 3, when he finds love with Loretta, who is played by Meryl Streep and becomes the lead in his musical, only for circumstances to force them to be long distance. And the worst part is that he kind of resents her success, both because he doesn't have his own, but also because it's her success that keeps this happiness away from him.
But when you finally do land your dream, your moment in that spotlight,
I said, "Where have you been?"
Oh.
how far would you go to hang on to it?
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
But of course, this is a person that you love. You want them to be successful. So then there's the added layer of hating himself and feeling guilty for the resentment of her success, which just leads to more self-hatred and insecurity, which leads to more self-serving tendencies to try to push that away. And it's just this vicious cycle that goes around and around and around. And seasons 4 and 5 further explore Oliver's uncertain presence with a side plot regarding the potential sale of his unit in the Arconia. It's been shown, I want to say, starting in season 2 or 3, I believe. that he's been having financial issues and isn't able to like pay his taxes on the unit and stuff like that. And it's difficult to resist the temptation to sell when he ends up receiving such a high offer. But the temptation is really rooted in monetary reasons for the most part, as he's clearly torn by it and he doesn't have any real desire to leave the place that he's called home for so long, especially now that he has reformed strong community within it. I know it got a little lonely there for a while when his wife left him and his son became an adult with his own family, but that apartment has held his life for so long. And then this situation is further complicated in season 5 with a fire that destroys Loretta's own apartment and everything that she owns. The trauma from experiencing that directs her towards this idea of getting an entirely fresh start with Oliver, finding a new place for them to live and build together. On one hand, a life with Loretta, physical proximity included, is something that Oliver wants. I mean, he really does love this woman. I mean, shit, he got married at the end of season 4. On the other hand, committing to such a life is surrendering the comfort and community and everything he's known for the past however many decades. Additional information from season 5 that I won't reveal here because, again, nothing is set in stone and the season isn't even done airing yet, continues to sort of twist the knife in the issue, pun intended, when it's revealed that the sale of his apartment may be the very thing that leads to the extinction of the Arconia in its entirety, not just within an individual resident's memory and the life that he built there, but literally the entire building of people who live there, effectively eliminating a collective whole. That responsibility and knowing that he, in fact, might be the reason that it happens is, you know, an extra layer of grief. Everything in this show is about grief. And then there is my personal favorite of the 3, Charles, played by Steve Martin.
Tim Kono was murdered by someone in this building, which means...
Okay, I'm sorry, cut.
What's the matter?
You are scoring a murder mystery, not DJing a hobbit's wedding.
The concertina can be very haunting. It transports.
Yeah, well, it transports me back to 1800s Ireland. I feel like I'm in the middle of the potato famine.
While Oliver attempts to leave his own, professional reputation at any door that he attempts to sneak through, instead choosing to name drop and invoke the reputation of others, Charles desperately clings to what remains of his reputation, hoping that it will carry him forward.
And that show business elephant is me.
Oh, dear Lord.
Yes, I played Aristotle Brazos in 224 episodes of dramatic television.
Aristotle?
I can't. As well as a reboot, which is currently on hiatus because the producer is up on harassment charges.
His success as a 1980s daytime television detective, Brazos, doesn't really get him very far these days. And when his Brazos persona finally does slip away for good, Charles is left naked and alone and unsure of who he is or who he can be and also what he is deserving of. Unlike Oliver, who kind of stumbled upon love and companionship when it appeared in front of him, Charles has been consistently and actively looking for love throughout the seasons. But unlike Oliver, he's yet to actually find someone that sticks. In season 1, he opens his heart to Jan, another resident of the building, only to, by the end of the season, realize that he's been betrayed and lied to. In season 3, he reunites with a woman named Joy, who was a makeup artist from his Brazos day and who he has always thought fondly of. And though the past is there revisiting him, a past that he clings to desperately because he thinks of it as the height of his life so far, it isn't who he remembers. Through his relationship with Joy, he's also forced to reckon with the reality that, frankly, I myself fear, which is that so many years of self-sufficiency and hyper-independence makes even simple companionship feel suffocating. And that is scary and sad to think about. Anyways, so he's had these 2 sort of unlucky bouts of relationships. And then in season 4, Charles loses Saz, who is, for all intents and purposes, the love of his life. Whether or not he's able to put words to it, Saz was his soulmate. Because Saz wasn't just his stunt double, she was his partner in much of his life and his dearest confidant. She was the only person in the world who knew him fully and saw him clearly, beyond even what he understands about himself.
You were more than just a stunt double. You took care of me in every way a person could take care of someone. You're my oldest, best friend. What'll I do without you?
So not only is he forced to mourn his own soulmate, who, by the way, may or may not have taken the hit for him. We don't know until much later in the season whether the hit was even meant for Saz or if it was supposed to be Charles who was killed. He's also racked with the guilt of realizing through their investigation that he didn't even know her as intimately as she knew him, and he fears that his obliviousness to the whole of the situation was actively burdensome to her when she was alive. Where Oliver consistently deflects fault away from himself, Charles instinctively assumes it, stemming far back into his childhood when he was blamed for an accident that hurt his little sister, played by Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, I started collecting after Dawn's wedding. And then when Dina and Danielle went to DeVry, and then Dagmar, which is my youngest, the little baby, she really just left to wound me.
His emotionally distant mother and lack of healthy, expressive role models led to him bottling up all of his strong emotions for over 6 decades. And losing Saz is the thing that finally pops the cork.
Charles, tantrum with me.
No.
They incinerated your friend, Charles, and then plied you with word games from the New York Times.
So far, I'm underwhelmed.
Yes. Interesting. Is this how I find out he's a mime?
No. We can't hear him, but I'm so tuned into his character, I can feel his words. He's saying, "These people killed Saz. I am steamed and put out," to some degree.
So we have our main trio dealing with so many layers of grief, including things I haven't even gone into per se, like the fact that Mabel also lost her father at a young age to cancer and didn't even know that he had cancer, which is, you should tell your kid things like that, honestly. That was kind of shitty of them, but I also get it. It was like, oh, we didn't want to break her heart, but then he still died, so her heart was still broken. So I don't know what the logic was there. But even beyond our trio, our side characters, their narrative arcs are also primarily contending with grief. There's Uma, who was Bunny's best friend. Bunny is the victim in season 2, and she was the only person who could match her ongoing distaste with the world. We have Howard, who's been there since season 1, and his struggles with persistent loneliness, even when he theoretically has people to be around, people and pets to be around who should be, filling that desire for companionship. We have the Westies mourning Dudenoff, which, if you know, you know. And then there's even Theo's anger with Teddy in season 1, because anger is also a way that grief speaks. But now I'm going to steal a page from Oliver's book and ask myself, how can I make this about me? How can I make myself the center of attention here? I consider myself weirdly lucky to have grown up in a family where death was normal and where I was exposed to the concept of loss early in my life. I know that's like a weird thing to feel lucky for, but I'm going to explain. My mom's mom died when I was 11 months old, my mom's dad when I was 4, my dad's dad when I was 6, and my dad's mom when I was 13 or 14. And those were just my grandparents. along the way, I attended funerals for my parents' friends and extended family. I saw the life sucked out of people by cancer. I saw it ripped away suddenly in freak accidents. I distinctly remember the first time that somebody at my school died. I was in 6th grade. I think she was in 8th grade. And I watched my peers contend with the reality that children can die too. And those were just the human deaths. There were also lots of animals. I lived on a farm. I have seen a lot of death, both human and otherwise. So it's maybe a weird thing to be grateful for, and yet I am grateful for it because I have seen the alternative. I remember a friend in high school who lost their grandfather, who they were very close to. We were 17 years old, and that was the very first time that they personally knew someone who had died. I can't imagine having not had the chance or the opportunity to contend with the reality of death until I was almost an adult. That is wild. Seeing my friend in so much pain was bad enough, but the thought of having to process not just like personal grief, but also to be confronted for the very first time with the finality of death, it seems like an added layer of cruelty that I wouldn't wish on anybody who's already suffering profound and intimate loss. When death has been present throughout your life, it doesn't seem so scary. It's very sad, absolutely. It's always sad, but it's not scary. Death is simply the final act of life. Or, as National Treasure puts it, it's the debt that all men pay. The way that generally U.S. culture tends to tiptoe around death and grief as though it's taboo is, in my personal opinion, incredibly weird and unnatural, and also a disservice to anybody who is grieving or has experienced loss. We've somehow managed to turn it into like this posthumous transactional affair, like it's the final gift you contribute to the ever-turning wheel of capitalism, rather than a circumstance where actions are based in community and connection and, I don't know, honoring the dead. In mid-September, after I had started writing this, I got a call from my dad letting me know that he was on his way to help move his estranged brother, Frank, into hospice. Now, I never knew Frank. In fact, I only met him once when I was, 6 years old. I was at my grandfather's funeral. This man I didn't know or recognize walked up and introduced himself as my uncle. Now, I don't blame my parents for not telling me about him, per se, but this was, to me, like, the ultimate betrayal. Not even that they had kept him away from me, but it was the understanding that I thought I'd had about my dad was suddenly just tipped on its axis. Because, my mom comes from a big family. I know her stories of when she was a kid and her siblings and her, I know about her family. And I thought I knew about my dad, but I guess I didn't, right? He had lied to me, or maybe he didn't, but it felt like he did. So all I really knew about his brother up until literally the past couple of weeks was that he had some type of learning disability. He was strange enough to have been diagnosed in the 1950s, and that he and my dad have never gotten along. But I've learned a lot about Frank in the past few weeks. He was an engineer and a physicist, and his research was about lasers. After some online sleuthing, I learned that he was an active member of several science fiction associations and a contributor to a few different fanzines in the 1980s, though unfortunately I have been unable to track down copies of the specific issues that he contributed to. So I'm going to have to reach out to some people, if they're still around, to see if I can get my hands on those, because I'm very curious. What do you mean I had an uncle who was active in fandom? Say more. I know that to most he was awkward and off-putting, but with a modern lens, I think it becomes clear that maybe he wasn't actually that weird at all, and perhaps the world he grew up in just wasn't quite ready to be kind to an obviously autistic gay man. I'm thinking it's that. Their mother always pit them against each other, neither of them living up to her ridiculous expectations. The week my father was there with him, they both realized that their mother had actually been the villain all along, and the realization of how different things could have been had they come to this conclusion earlier, I think it comes with its own special kind of grief. And frankly, it's one that I felt as well when I spoke to Frank for the second and final time. I did feel a little bit like Caleb Heron when Rolling Stone's 7th most influential person, Mr. Beast, called to apologize to Rolling Stone's 6th most influential person.
God love him. He called me, Mr. Beast, called me and said, "I'm so sorry about that." And I said,
"Did he actually? This is really
he really did.
Incredible.
He said, "Can I call you?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He called me. I said, "Why the hell not, brother?"
So my dad passed the phone over, and it was clear that he had prepared like a little speech of what he wanted to say to me. So he, says his little speech. But one line from it really stuck out to me, which was, and I quote, "I just wanted a moment to send you warm greetings and a farewell." Something about a hello goodbye, it's gonna get me every time. As of writing this, which was October 16th, he has since passed. And I didn't even know the man, right? But the idea of knowing him and the certainty that I will never have the chance to does make me miss him. So just days after that conversation, I was given a more immediate reason to mourn with the sudden loss of my aunt, who I did know and love. My mom is the baby of 6 kids. It was her oldest sister, Carol, who was recovering from surgery when it happened. I think the cruel irony is that had it been related to the surgery, it probably wouldn't have been so hard, but it wasn't related at all. And in fact, she had just been telling my mom she was feeling better than she had in years in her recovery. I have to go on a brief tangent for a moment, but I promise it'll come back around, okay? Just stick with me. The day before my aunt died, I had gone with a friend to see The Long Walk. I had wanted to see, scary movie, yeah. I had wanted to see it, but I did put off going until somebody could go with me since it was based on a Stephen King story. Again, I say, I know people were telling me it's not scary. Okay, well, I don't believe you. I don't trust these people insisting movies that are quite literally classified as horror movies aren't scary. Sorry. You're not going to convince me because your scale is very warped compared to my wimpy baby scale of scariness, okay? That said, I could have trusted you guys for this one. I could have trusted you guys for this one because it was not scary. But I'm not going to let my guard down, okay? Because that's how they get you. And I don't want to be got. I was not scared even once, but goddamn was I sad. God damn was I sad.
I'm the rabbit. Huh? I'm the fucking rabbit.
Even with my weak stomach for gore, I simply wasn't going to miss Francis Lawrence directing what is essentially the rated R Vietnam allegory version of The Hunger Games. You guys know I'm not going to pass that up, okay? That's why I simply waited for a friend. Now, was the gore horrific? Yeah. Yeah, it was. I made the mistake of forcing myself to watch the first boy getting his ticket, which I kind of regret because I know now that it was actually one of the worst ones. Besides the guy in the tank. Ooh, I don't even want to think about that one. I do get why they were that gory with it though, and I actually stand by Stephen King's insistence on keeping that in. I think he said, there's not a point in making it if you're not going to show it. And I support that, like keeping the horror of it in plain view, since the horror is in fact the point of the story, right? Like how violence and war is useless, horrific, pointless, disgusting, unneeded. What I like though is that the movie had a warning system built directly into the story, like in a narrative sense. It literally gave me personally the chance to look away, but I also feel like the warnings almost dared the audience as a whole to do the same. I think that choice really forces us to confront some of the same things that viewing The Hunger Games does in world, which is where we have to examine why it's considered entertainment and why we're okay watching it happen, even knowing that it's not okay happening. Do I think that people seeing a fictional movie about terrible things happening to kids on TV are inherently bad people? No, obviously not. I love the Hunger Games, okay? But there is always that meta sense of it where it's like, well, I'm watching it for entertainment, though, even though the bad people in the thing are also watching it for entertainment. Having something that prompts us to, at the very least, reflect on that is a good thing, and I think it was a good choice. I ended up using my Audible credit this month to get the audiobook, and I have fully committed to the bit by only consuming it when I'm out on a walk. I'm about halfway through it right now. I did also buy a physical copy of the book to annotate. As a whole, there is a lot of war-inspired media that I love dearly and cling to. Like, honestly, I feel like I could go war by war if I wanted to, because the Hunger Games for Iraq, yes, but also the book In Memoriam by Alice Wynne and the movie 1917 for World War I. Also, quick self-promo, I do have a video about those two pieces of media together in one video from a while ago on my channel. I would say Jojo Rabbit and the Book Thief for World War II. Also, the kid from Jojo Rabbit being the first kid. Rough. It was rough. MASH for Korea. Good Morning Vietnam. And a through line through most, if not all of them, is the moments of kindness and humor and human compassion that is nestled among the unimaginable circumstances. The Long Walk is sad and horrific and graphic as these young men meet their violent ends. But it's also beautiful and uplifting and at times even hopeful as they do the best they can to be there for each other when it counts.
Yes, I loved her, how I loved her, though her shoes were number 9. Harry boxes without topses, sandals were for Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine.
The two deaths in the movie that really got me were Collie and Art. Oh God, Art. Oh, my baby.
Just keep walking a little longer, okay? No, okay. Okay. Please. I can't, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm going home.
I could not deal with Art's death. That was the one that really, really got me. It's the way that, like, even the camera work honored his last wishes when he's asking them, like, promise me you won't watch, promise me you won't watch. And then it stays on McFreeze and Ray, and it's blurry, and you see it and you hear it happen, but you don't watch it. Like, you can't see it, though. And he was the only one of, like, our main that you didn't see. Well, hello. Oh, God, Art. Also, sidebar. Cooper Hoffman and, what's his name, David Johnson. Oh, you guys are gonna be stars. Like, I already knew Cooper Hoffman was good, but David Johnson, I'm gonna be I hope he, at the very least, I think he deserves an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in The Long Walk. Incredible acting. Oh my goodness. So anyways, I saw The Long Walk with my friend on a Sunday evening, and then I spent the next 24 hours really thinking about it, right? Like, it stuck with me, and I ended up sending my friend, shout out Alessandra, probably like 25 minutes worth of voice memos about the movie. And literally as I finished sending the last voice memo, I got a call from my dad. So my mom had been on the phone with my aunt, basically calling to check on her in recovery. They had been talking and laughing. They got off the phone, and 20 minutes later, my uncle, who does happen to be a Vietnam vet, he called, which was strange, right? So basically, once my mom and my aunt had said goodbye and hung up, my aunt had gone to take her medication and get ready for bed, and she choked on a pill. That was it. That's all it was. Wasn't health related, wasn't surgery related. It was just a random accident, and the Heimlich didn't work. That's all it was. It was something that could happen to anybody. I learned all of that moments after I was talking extensively about this movie, about a movie where these young men are openly discussing the active relationship that they have with their own impending death, right? It was a movie where Ray specifically calls out the sobering reality, which is that the only thing we're promised in life is death. And if we're lucky, we'll get to choose how we spend our last moments. And I was definitely in shock. I think we all were in shock, right? But the only thing that kept ringing through my head over and over and over again was that if it had to happen, right? If it was always going to happen and there was nothing anybody could have done to stop it, laughing and having a good time on the phone with your sister is a pretty nice way to spend those last moments.
When I was a kid, right, I never really thought about death. You know, I don't think most kids do, but until you're confronted by it. And once I was scared shitless. I was so afraid of it. But there's something about being with these boys. I don't know, it reminded me that the only guarantee you have as a human being is that you are going to die. And if you're lucky, you get to choose how to spend those last moments. And you're right, Pete, this moment matters. Every moment matters. Especially at the end.
So, I actually wrote the obituary. They asked me to, and I was equally honored by the privilege as I was daunted by the task. Because how do you sum up a whole person and their whole life in just a few paragraphs? Like, who am I to write the enduring historical record of the family historian? That's what she was. And, you know, people told me that I did a good job, and I know that's true. Like, I wrote a nice obituary, but, like, it's not enough, right? And it never will be, and it just won't be. It just isn't. And then, you know, at the funeral, being around family, being home in, like, the literal and metaphorical sense, brought up a lot of emotions for me. I'm not gonna sit here and sift through them like you guys are my therapist, because that's what my actual therapist in my journal is for. But sometimes I think that I'm so used to talking about a sense of place from an academic standpoint for the purpose of discussion and things like this that I forget to investigate the cultural geographies that I carry within myself. Because that requires a very different brand of vulnerability than the ones that I'm already used to expressing. Because, to be clear, I do hard and scary things all the time, right? Existing on the internet is pretty scary, especially when it's like this. Like, my face is out there, I'm sharing thoughts and feelings, and believing myself, also scary. Investing in my own ideas, scary and financially questionable in this day and age. And yet I managed to do those, right? Like, telling the internet what I think and what I'm feeling is one thing, but who I am and where I'm from is something that's mine alone, right? And sometimes it hurts to look at that, and sometimes it's hard to let myself be wide open to the experience when I've spent so much of my life trying to, like, protect myself. But being home and being with family, and being home and being with family and being without a family member, ooh, it's confronting. It really is. And, you know, the people make the place, and the place is never going to be the same again. And as hard as it's been watching my parents mourn their siblings in such quick succession, in truth, I have felt profoundly moved by their grief. Like, I feel like I'm a witness to how beautiful it is to be human and to be alive and to exist, even if only for a little while. Like, I've spent portions of my life depressed and numb and unaware, and that's not really a life at all. To feel all of the highs, the lows have to exist. If pain is a given, then so must be joy. And if loss is a guarantee, then so must be love. And so I was writing this, and I was thinking about Charles and the love that he has for Saz. And I was thinking about Mabel and the love that she had for her father and for the version of Tim Kono that she knew. And then my life fell apart. And then I thought maybe I should keep writing this, and maybe this is just part of the story I was starting to tell, and I just didn't know how it was going to end or where it was going. And I realized I think I've spent the past however long trying to solve the murder in my own building, wherein the victim is love and the murderer is loss, and the building is the people that make up my family, found or otherwise, just like the Arconia. And my mind drifts to the song Grief by Leith Ross, because I think they sum it up really well.
But grief is love run backwards, so we love them better than, yeah, we love them with forgiveness, all because we know the end. So I never will stop grieving, everything is yet to die. I think I love after I'm dead, and I'll grieve while I'm alive.
So I've spent a lot of this video talking about the geography of grief, basically, but I think there's another element here, which is like the geography of time. The greatest threat to the existence of a person or a capital P place isn't an individual act of violence. It's time. The violence hurts too, of course, whether it's a knitting needle to the chest or a house fire that rips away everything you own, which, by the way, poor Loretta. Poor Loretta. Personally, this is a sidebar and it's not in my script. I was having intrusive thoughts for like a few months that my house was going to burn down, and it was like a serious source of anxiety for me. And then a few months later, the entire block outside my window, I was like against the alley, and the other side of the alley, literally like 30 feet away, the entire block burnt to the ground. And when I tell you that, set me back years. That was a very dangerous precedent to be setting, that, hey, maybe sometimes your intrusive thoughts are right. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. I'm terrified of fire and house fires and all that stuff. So I really do feel terrible for Loretta. But where these types of tragedies and accidents only happen to the few unlucky souls, time is a threat that looms over us all, and it has a promise to act with no way for anybody to intervene. It is the unstoppable force, and we are not immovable objects. I speak generally for the human race as a whole, that I think we'd all sacrifice everything if it meant more time. More time to do the things we love, to be with the people that we love, but time is the one thing that can't be bought. The Arconia has been changing for a while now, but I think Season 5 does have a particular focus on the change, and I expect that Season 6 will as well. Though the show has no signs of slowing down, and I hope that there are at least a couple more seasons left in it yet, the Arconia as we know it has already embarked on the slow march to the end. And hopefully, if we're lucky, the showrunners will get to choose how they spend those last few moments. We are getting close to the end here, but I just want to quickly roll through some other elements of the show that I love, make some concrete predictions, and pose some questions for discussion in the comments. One of the most amazing things about Only Murders in the Building is the caliber of performance. I cannot think of a single other show that consistently has such big names in relatively minor roles that aren't even so minor as to be considered cameos. Like, they're big enough to be a commitment, but small enough to be like, how did you get that person? Like, Meryl Streep is literally a series regular. Meryl Streep. Okay? Throughout the seasons, we've had side characters played by Paul Rudd, Tina Fey, Nathan Lane, Eugene Levy, I forgot how to say her name. Is it Cara Delevingne? Cara Delevingne? You guys know who I'm talking about. Eyebrows. Zach Galifianakis, Eva Longoria, Molly Shannon, Matthew Broderick. Seriously, I could keep going. There are so many huge names that are just casually involved in this show. just this season, okay, we've got Logan Lerman, Christoph Waltz, Renee Zellweger, Beanie Feldstein, and Keegan-Michael Key as season regulars. Stepping beyond the fourth wall and into the real world, the physical production of Only Murders has established itself as a capital P place that talented people want to be. Consistently, you'll hear people talk about their experiences on set as some of the best of their career, and the delight that they take in getting to play on such a high level. That exact phrase gets used so often. I do have a running wish list of people that I would like to see on the show, but at the very top of it, I have Natasha Lyonne. I feel like she needs to be on there. And I don't know if I want her as like a side character or the next penthouse owner. And then I would also love to see Ted Danson as a rival from Charles's past. I think that would be hilarious. I think it would work. Ted Danson is like the taller, slightly more handsome, just as funny version of Steve Martin that I think would make Charles super insecure, but in like an enjoyable way. But I would love to know who you would put on the show if you could, and what role they would play. So please drop those down in the comments, because I have a few other ideas, but I'm curious to know what you guys think, because I feel like our collective will be much better than what I have on my list. Also, prediction time. Who do you guys think the next murder victim will be? If all goes according to plan, this video will have dropped before the finale airs. But I'm kind of torn. I'm kind of torn on who I think it'll be. I have a couple guesses, but I don't know. As much as it would pain me, like it seriously would be very sad, and I wouldn't want this to happen. However, I do unfortunately think that Loretta is actually a pretty high contender, because Oliver is the only one of our trio who hasn't had a meaningful personal relationship with any of the victims. Yes, he knew Bunny, right? But like, they weren't friends, certainly. And yeah, obviously he was personally affected by Paul Rudd's character, whose name I don't remember, because that was the lead in his production. But he wasn't like personally, like emotionally affected, right? He was emotionally effective because his career is going in the drain again. Whereas Mabel had a personal relationship and past with Tim Kono, and Charles had a personal relationship and past with Saz. That said, you could use the same argument, the personal relationship thing, to make a case that it's Mabel's turn, since Tim Kono was the last time that the ball had been primarily in her court. Because, like, Bunny, not really hers. If anything, that season kind of focuses more on Charles because of the painting and that whole situation. Season 3, she's not even in the musical. That one's all Steve Martin and Mark Short. And then season 4, Saz, that's Charles's season. Season 5, Lester. That's kind of everybody's season. I don't know. I feel like it could be Mabel's turn. And in that case, if it is her turn, the list is pretty narrow because Mabel does not have really any other friends. So I think if it's Mabel's turn, Fee is at risk, especially now that they are back on good terms in the most, maybe it wasn't the most recent episode, but a recent episode they were like throwing shoes at each other and then they made up. So Beanie Feldstein, you might be on the chopping block. But honestly, I don't even really know who else it could be to even like make a wild guess, because I feel like the residential ensemble is safe for the time being, since we just lost Lester and we already lost Bunny in season 2. It would be dumb for them to kill off Howard. I think that would only happen if it were the final season, because otherwise he's like an important piece in their success. Like he kind of fills in when they need him in a lot of ways. So I think it wouldn't make narrative sense to kill Howard. They can't kill Uma because Uma would just be Bunny 2.0. They're close to the same character. Maybe the therapist guy is at risk, but we don't even really see him all that much to care. But he kind of just is trying to make $1 every time something traumatic happens, so I don't know. I did think about the detective, but she has a young child, and I think it would be hard to write since that would cut off the one strong connection that they have now on the other side of the law, and they've worked hard to forge that connection over multiple seasons. I don't think it would be worth it to cut it off. I do think Mr. Pink Eye, the Westie, I forgot his name, he would make for an interesting season because he seems to be a sweet and interesting guy. But given the way that season 4 went, I also think that the Westies are safe for now, particularly since he was the only one of them who returned to be here this season. Like, we haven't seen any of the other Westies who we got to know really well last season. They just haven't made appearances. I just don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Both who do you think is going to be the victim, and also who would you put on the show? I'm really curious to hear your answers and reasoning for both of them. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me if you've made it this far. I really did not intend for this video to end up going the way that it did. But you guys know that I'm always following threads that I didn't expect to encounter. So here we are. That's where we ended up. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, share it with your whodunit loving friends, all that jazz. It really helps me get my videos seen by the algorithm and makes them more sustainable for me to produce in the long term. Other ways you can support would be to follow me on my socials, subscribe to my Patreon. Also, thank you so much to my patrons. You guys are the best. You can watch all my videos ad-free over there. I also post like behind the scenes stuff, and even if you don't want to get a paid tier, which is how you get the ad-free stuff, you should go over there and just sign up for a free membership, because I put like channel updates and stuff like that over there. I let you guys know what's going on behind the scenes more if you want to keep up with what I'm doing. You can also check out my Etsy shop. I have a ton of zines and fan art and stickers and all sorts of buttons, all sorts of fun stuff over there. Thank you so much for watching. Timmy says thank you as well, because now his teefies won't hurt anymore. I will see you guys at the secret casino. I'll be at the roulette table. Please don't cut off my finger. Okay, bye!
And one of the pieces that I had written, like around reading the script, was this melody that was da 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 da